If you'd like to become a master of influence and change your life, Christian Jack will show us how. So, Christian, tell us how entrepreneurs can become a master of influence and persuasion.
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Well, man, I think at the end of the day, it's the same thing as anything else. If you want to master anything in your life, you have to put in a lot of work, have to have somebody who can kind of guide you along the way and just kind of be willing to push through and put in the time, you know? But I think for influence specifically, there's a lot of misinformation about influence, about persuasion, and lots of people think it's just about like trying to manipulate people or, you know, put all of these fancy frames in place or something like that. And from my experience, it's actually none of that at all.
Okay, so tell us about your method for entrepreneurs to become masters of influence and persuasion.
So there's a couple of different steps to it. But the first one is understanding for any sort of influence to happen, people need to feel safe, right? So nobody is going to make a change if they don't feel safe. If they're scared of making the change for something else to happen, or if they're scared that like in the process of the decision making, they could make the wrong decision or anything like that, that will typically not end well. So there's a stat that if someone is experiencing some sort of, you know, stress, anxiety, negative emotions, typically they only have access to about 20% of the intellect that they would have if they weren't stressed, right? And people realize this, they understand that. That's why people, you know, maybe you're in your life and you're trying to influence or persuade somebody and they're like, oh, I just need some time to like think through this. It's a big decision, right? Your brain naturally knows it. So the first thing is just helping people feel safe. So, and the question is like, how do you make somebody or allow somebody to feel safe? Generally, it's through human connection. If you can connect with another human being and just like be a normal person on the other side, shockingly enough, you can help somebody to feel safe. So I'd say that's really the first key step. The second one is then to hook attention. So no sort of change can happen without attention being brought to some aspect of it, whether you're like, you know, talking to your boss about getting a raise, whether it be, you know, you're running a business and you're wanting to get people into your funnel, whether it be, you know, talking to your kid and wanting them to eat their vegetables, right? I think getting attention is the next step. If you can't get their attention and help them see like, you know, what it is they really want, and just open up the conversation, then you're probably going to have a hard time influencing that other person. The last thing that's another really big key point with all of this is just connecting the dots for people. That's usually where influence truly happens, right? If I were to ask you, Lily, just as an example, do you want to be more successful in your life or less successful in your life?
More.
Right. And do you think that in order to be more successful, you're probably going to have to do more hard things? Or do you think that success comes from doing things that feel comfortable or feel easy?
I don't think you have to do hard things necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to surrender to making what appears to be hard, to making that be easy for you through practice.
100%.
Surrendering.
100% agree. So at the end of the day, all that, like, you know, if we're talking about influence and persuasion or sales, however you want to put it, it's really just connecting the dots for people for like what it is that they really want and what's required to get there, right? If you can do that, that like influence done. They're influencing themselves at that point. You don't have to like convince them about, oh, our thing is the best in the world, or we're cheaper than everybody else, or anything like that. Even just taking it in the context of vegetables, right? My parents had this conversation with me as a kid all the time. I hated eating my vegetables, but they always came back to like, well, you want to be big and strong when you grow up, right? Like you don't want to be one of those weak, scrawny kids. Like, no, I want to be strong. It's like, okay, well, vegetables help make you strong. So like, do you want to be strong? Yes. All right. Then eat your vegetables. So like the influence, it's super simple when you put it into those terms. But I think a lot of people just naturally overcomplicate it. But if you do those 3 steps, right? Human connection, attention, and then just connecting the dots.
What about selling high ticket items? How do you become a master of influence so that you can easily sell super high ticket items?
It's the same thing at the end of the day. There's a couple of nuances within it. Just to give listeners maybe a little bit of context, I've generated somewhere around 100 million for myself and the businesses that I work with over the past, like 3 years or so. So I've sold a fair few high ticket products. And I think the biggest nuance comes in with trust. Because usually when you're selling a high ticket product, it's to people on the internet, right? It's usually not like an in-person thing. Maybe there's some in-person aspects of going to an in-person mastermind or meetup or something like that, but it's mostly on the internet. And most people understand that most things on the internet can be 100% falsified, right? Even these days with AI, like creating AI-generated images, some of those are starting to look pretty good. Some of those are starting to look pretty real. And like you can use AI when editing photos and videos and all sorts of different things at this point. So just knowing that, I kind of refer the time that we're into what I call the post-trust era, is that people don't really trust other people on the internet very much anymore. And so I'd say that's really the biggest hurdle, especially if you're looking for ultra high ticket items. So I'm talking things that are, I'd say at the very, very low end, if I think of ultra high ticket, it's like 30K and up, right? I've sold things up into the millions and it's the same exact thing, but all of that trust stuff goes into the human connection stage, right? Those 3 stages: human connection, attention, connecting the dots. Trust comes in human connection. So it's just about connecting with the other person. And if you're talking to people who are actually like really well off, they're wanting to purchase something very high ticket, that's the thing that matters to them the most anyway, right? They're probably not going to get caught up into all the semantics of, the specifics of your offer if you are able to connect with them on a human to human.
Thank you. What needs to be in that communication in order to connect with them on a human level?
Good question. The first thing is like you just kind of have to get them kind of talking and interested a little bit. So usually that happens, let's just say, like very, very common business funnel strategy is doing like a 30 to 60-second ad, right? Calling out your unique audience, their problem, telling them that you have a specific way to help them solve that unique problem. Already the way that you communicate in that ad is going to communicate either well or not as well to the prospects that you're trying to attract, right? So let's say like in that ad, maybe let's talk real estate, right? There's going to be different words that somebody uses if they are very well versed in real estate versus if they're a beginner, right? And your customers, your prospective customers can 100% pick up on that. Whether they know it consciously or not is kind of another thing, but we'll skip past that. But they know it, right? So that's step one. Like you have to be able to communicate in a way in that leveraged system of running ads, or whether it be organic content, whatever it might be, to instill that trust and expertise in people. That's really the first step. From an ad, usually people go to like some sort of form, right? A booking form, schedule a call, lead form, fill out their name, email, phone number. On there, if you ask a couple of key questions where you're pushing people away That's another way to really instill trust, because if you think about like a needy business owner who doesn't get much business, they'll take anybody and everybody into their program. And prospects can sniff that out from a mile away, right? That needy, in sales, they refer to it as like commission breath, right? You're really just looking for the sale. Whereas if on the form, let's say that you ask some questions that might be a little bit triggering to some prospects, or they might feel like you're getting a little bit too personal, or saying that there's a certain threshold to be able to work with us. So you're pushing people away, and the people who are actually qualified for what you do, that will pull them in even more. So it's kind of a double whammy effect there. You're pushing away people that you wouldn't be able to work well with, and attracting more of the people that you do want to work well with. And then it gets into the sales process. From there, I think that's really the key point, that human connection really starts, right? When you call them, when you text them, they show up on Zoom, whatever your method is, just being a human for a second is really important. You don't have to like go over the top and, did you see the game last night or anything like that? But just, it's kind of counterintuitive, but just be normal. It's like, hey, how's it going? If you were to, let's say that, you were booking calls, they hopped on Zoom with you for a 45-minute call. Lots of people will open up those calls and say like, hey, welcome on. Looks like we've got 45 minutes booked in here. On this call, we're going to be going for like a yes or no. And like they'll set a hard frame right at the top. But if you met somebody at the bar, let's say like you were trying to find a potential partner at the bar, right? Going on a date or something. You wouldn't say at the beginning of the date, like, listen, I'm looking for like a heck yes or a heck no at the end of this conversation of like whether you want to get married or not. Like it would completely push people away every single time. So what would probably be more likely to happen and lead to a better result is just like, hey, how's it going? What you been up to today? Right? And naturally the conversation kind of flows in from there. So I think creating human connection is a lot simpler than people realize, but because it's so simple, it makes it hard.
Thank you. What difference do you find, for example, from selling, let's say, $10,000 products or services to selling 30K, 50K, 100K? What's the difference there in terms of interactions in order for you as an entrepreneur to become a master of influence and persuasion?
Understanding people's buying processes would be the biggest change I've seen from 10K to upward. So if you're selling a 10K product or service, it's fairly straightforward. Like to different people, 10K is a lot of money or not a lot of money. Realistically, it's not a lot of money, right? And so you don't have to cater to people's buying processes nearly as much with 10K. It's just like, does this make sense or doesn't it? When you get to products like, let's say, you're doing capital advisory for a business in order to get them capital in order to launch or, whatever. Let's say you're doing like a 50K product or a 100K product. That's going to be a little bit different because like there's a specific process that person goes through in order to move forward with something like that. It probably includes talking with lawyers, running the contract, the agreement through them. If you're dealing with, B2B scenario, maybe it deals more with financing departments. So usually it's just asking the person to get clear on their buying process. So a conversation around, have you made some sort of decision like this before? Have you made this sort of investment into your business before? Or is this going to be your first time? If it's their first time, then you can kind of break down, okay, and what are kind of the expectations that you have in terms of how this is going to go, so that you understand where they're coming from and you can kind of meet them in the middle, or you can re-educate them on like, well, that's cool. This is how we typically do things. Or if they have made this sort of decision before, then you can just kind of play into what they've done in the past, or same thing, you can flip that on its head and do things completely differently. So from there, you can kind of decide which you would like to be. But understanding their buying process, the steps that need to be taken in order to move forward, the things that they need to see, understanding what's important to them is a really big deal.
Thank you. How can you set certain criteria to kind of ensure that they kind of qualify that will be how to say no bullshit criteria? Like criteria that is actually true and authentic. For example, let's say if I said, okay, I can only take 5, and really I can take 10 people to work with this. How would you kind of set the expectation in a way that it is authentic and at the same time it works in terms of attracting the right high caliber type of entrepreneurs?
Fantastic question. I think a lot of people will use that sort of fake scarcity like that. Will say, I can only take 5 clients this month, when in reality they can take 10. But like, what's the main reason that you're not saying that you can take 10? Maybe it's the way that you want to be perceived by them. Maybe you feel like 5 is more exclusive. Maybe it's just the way that you're posting and you're, saying comment below if you want to get access to this. And you're afraid that, you won't get enough comments to make people believe that there's 10 people signing up, right? Usually it's all in your head at that point. So being authentic is just about being authentic. Like, it's just being you. It's telling the truth, not doing any fake stuff. And I think if you learn other ways to do things, then being authentic becomes a lot simpler. So in that example, right, let's say that we made, a Facebook post or something to our audience, or a LinkedIn post, and we said, we're looking for 10 people who want to X and Y and Z here in the next month. We have 10 spots available. Version 1 of the post, maybe the call to action is comment below the word X, Y, and Z, and our team will reach out. Like, that can work. But if you're afraid that you won't have enough people commenting to like drive audiences to feel that scarcity, then I would just change the call to action to be something else, right? Maybe, DM us if you want to get access to this, or DM the word blank, or maybe there's different options. You can put your phone number in there, text us at this number with this word, and that way other people won't necessarily see if you have less than 10 people inquiring, but then you're still going to get in some good numbers, and you did it in a way where you didn't have to be inauthentic with it. Because then that will also really mess with your head as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, just as a human being. The more inauthenticity, the more dishonesty that you put out into the world, the more that your brain is going to have trouble reconciling that information with what's true, and the less likely you are to actually succeed in your life, without getting too deep into like quantum physics and stuff with that one. But it's real.
Thank you. Now, I'm quite allergic to bullshit. And
Yeah.
I find that a lot of times when I see these forms where people say, okay, you have to apply in order to qualify for our 100K program, then it feels like it just really feels like a bunch of BS, because really most people would just not take everyone, but you know what I mean? It would be highly likely that you will get accepted, with a
Sure.
of even like 5K or 10K. So I wonder, how do you go around that? Like, do you suggest that when it comes to selling a super high ticket program, do you always have to have these kind of like limiters of explaining how exclusive the program is to kind of actually close a deal, or you don't have to?
Now, when you say exclusivity, do you mean like the number of people coming in, or like the finances required for it? There's a couple.
I mean, the first thing is like you have to apply as a person who has, let's say, 100K. It just feels like that you have to really apply, because I think most people would just like say, heck yeah, just give me the 100K.
Sure. So you have to, let's say like it's a 100K price point is what you're saying. Okay. I mean, with 100K, anything that's really above, I would say 25K is probably where I'm going to put a little checkbox or a question inside of the form that says the price of the program, right? Or at least the baseline entry level, so that the point is you can filter out people who don't have that, who aren't interested, and just send them other help, right? Because there's nothing worse than, let's say you're a business owner, right? And let's say that your program is 100K, and you put an ad out that says, maybe start your own, let's just use capital advisory again, say start your own capital advisory firm and land 7-figure deals in the next, 90 days or something like that. There's going to be a lot of people who are attracted to that, who have no idea what capital advisory is, who have nowhere near 100K liquid sitting around that they can put into something like that, who are probably going to want to click on that ad and just learn about it. And that's cool. They can, we'll probably have some resources to be able to send them, but I don't want them on a call, right? That would be wasting the team's time who takes those calls. So that might be an example where I would put on the form that this is a minimum 100K investment. Do you have 100K liquid to put into something like this right now? Or can you get access to it? Right? Simple yes or no. And then you filter out forms from there. That's a very no bullshit approach. And anybody who has a really high bullshit detection meter, they're probably going to realize that that's real, right? If you try to be sneaky snaky about it or something, people like you and like me will probably see it immediately and they won't even be interested. But the thing is, the people who do have a high bullshit meter are the people who probably are the most qualified for what you do. So just also have a no bullshit meter and put out your posts in that way, and you'll probably attract higher level people. It's really huge. I've worked with quite a few very, very well-off people who will spend multiple 6 figures in a night, on the town as an example. And those people are the most no bullshit people that I've ever met. And they appreciate you being no bullshit back at them and just having that conversation. If you're able to do that, you will get more business out of them than any other human being on the planet, just because they see something, they want it, they see that it makes sense, they feel like it'll work for them, they'll hop on it, right? There's no bullshit conversation around it. It's not like getting on a call with somebody who wants to leave their 9 to 5 and they're scared of putting in 10 grand, right? Very, very different.
Thank you. How do you build the kind of level of trust that needs to be built in order for you to convey that first, you're one of the best in the world at doing that specific thing, that specific result you're promising, and that you can deliver on it, and that it's worth their while, and also it meets the approval of their spouse, partner, or whatever it is?
Great question. There's a lot of things in there, so I'll try to take it step by step. In order to convey that you're the best in the world, you can't say that you're the best in the world, right? People who are really the best at what they do, they don't say it. There's evidence of it, right? So, say Michael Phelps, amazing swimmer, has the most gold medals of anybody ever in any sport. He has evidence. He doesn't just go around touting that he's the best in the world because he doesn't have to, right? The best coaches in the world, Myron Golden, Ed Milet, people like that, they don't say that they're the best in the world, but they have the evidence to back up that they very well could be one of the best in the world, right? So I think that's number one, is if you want people to see you as the best in the world, don't say it, have evidence to back it up. That could be testimonials, case studies, statistics, podcast appearances on the internet, whatever it might be. And then in order to instill enough trust in people to actually want to move forward with something like that, even when it's really high ticket, and especially with spouses, I think is a big part of your question there, is, how would I put it? I would say it just goes back to that no bullshit meter, human connection. Obviously the attention's already there because they're talking with their spouse about it. And it's just connecting the dots on why it would matter to them. Anything with influence and persuasion, again, comes back to that connecting the dots as to what it is that they want and how this gets them there. So, if you're talking to, let's say say that you're talking to the husband and he wants to go back and kind of talk things over with the wife, you probably need to cover somewhere in that conversation what sort of impact this would have on the wife if she's supportive of being able to get to that result. Let's say it's leaving the 9 to 5 to be able to spend more time at home with her, with the kids, so that the kids don't grow up without a dad, like who's always at work out all the time. If I asked, let's say I was on a call with somebody like that, if I asked your wife right now if she would like having you home with the kids and with her all the time, be able to travel, like be able to go and do the things, like, is that something that she would be supportive of you going and achieving? Yes, 100%. Like, always will be a yes. So then would you say that she's also supportive of you doing the necessary actions to be able to put yourself in the position where that can become a reality? Yes, she's supportive of that, depending on X and Y and Z, right? Probably time, as an example. In order to get this started, you're probably going to have to put in a couple of extra hours a night after your 9 to 5. Great. Are you actually able to put in that extra time? Well, I probably need to chat with my wife to like make sure that's okay with her taking the kids and all that kind of good stuff. Fantastic. If you were to chat with her and say that like this can get you to the point where you can leave your 9 to 5, do you think she would be supportive of taking a couple of extra hours with the kids? Yes. Bingo. So it's just connecting the dots of like what it is that you want, what it is that we do. Once you see the connected dots, it's pretty simple.
Thank you. How do you go from, let's say, having a really great meeting or one or two, kind of presenting what you're going to offer, and then, you send the proposal, and then, the client, let's say, is speaking to his wife, and then what do you go from there? Let's say if there's crickets after that.
Crickets is always an interesting one. I found humor to be the best to get people to re-engage because, again, it's creating that human connection. It's creating the safe space. Like there's trust there. So sending some sort of, my favorite meme is like the meme of it has a skeleton on a bench and it just says like me waiting for your reply or something like that. Me waiting for you to reply. Maybe I'll put like my face photoshopped on the skeleton. Just like a little bit of humor, a little bit of comedy will help somebody just kind of laugh. It's a pattern interrupt from their day to day. They probably weren't expecting you to send them a meme after you've had this whole, professional sales conversation and stuff. So that's a really great way if you're getting crickets. Now, if somebody says, we've decided not to move forward, that's one where people will get into a lot of trouble by just like texting them back or emailing them back. The absolute best way to get deals back on the line after somebody has potentially told you no over text is to call them. If you can, as soon as they've sent you the text, call them right then and there. The more time that passes, the harder it will be to get them on the phone. And you're going to be able to handle things much better on the phone than over text. Because text, you can't really see what their emotions are, what kind of thought processes they're going through. People can really hide behind that little backspace button. There's a lot of different things that go on with that. So getting them on the phone is just the way that you can serve them at a higher level.
Thank you. What sales process do you suggest entrepreneurs to follow in order to become a master of influence? Is it that they should have like, let's say 3 meetings, let's say an initial meeting, presentation meeting, and meeting handling objections and questions? Or do you have a different formula that works better?
Fantastic question. The more complicated and the more logistics there are around what you do and whether you can serve people, the more meetings you'll need to have. So if I'm talking with somebody about, just say that example, let's say maybe they're getting into e-commerce so that they can leave their 9 to 5 and I'm going to teach them how to set up stores and blah, 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 blah. That's probably a 1-call conversation. It doesn't need to be multiple. If you're doing, let's say, capital advisory, that's probably going to be like a 3-call conversation, maybe 2, usually 3. If it's like a business owner wanting to get help with their marketing, like a done-for-you service on a retainer or something like that, like that's definitely going to be a 2-call process. And then, as you go up and up, like I've had deals that'll take 9-10 months to close with 20 meetings. But that's because we have to go through legal, we have to go through the financing department, we have to meet with the marketing team, we have to meet with, head of this, head of that, like check the box here. So it's just the logistics in terms of working with you. The more complex it is, the more meetings you'll probably need to have in order to cover all those logistics.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Anywhere on the internet. If you Google Christian Jack, you'll probably be able to find me. If you want to get in contact, I would say Facebook is probably the best place. And then for your viewers specifically, I'll have a special link that I can give you to put down in the description and stuff if they want to learn more about specific things with influence.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.